Hello, Twitch. Welcome to AWS Repost Live, the companion live stream to AWS Repost, your favorite online knowledge sharing site. To the keen-eyed viewer, you will notice that I am not Jay Bush, as is said here in my little lower third. My name is Chris Thomas. I'm actually the producer for AWS Repost Live. So typically, I will interact with you via chat, but Jay wasn't able to join us today. He's actually busy becoming a dad. So that is a completely awesome thing. Please put some congrats, Jay, into the chat. I'll show it to him when he's back from his paternity leave. But I am also joined today by our awesome guest, Abhishek Sharma. So Abhishek, please introduce yourself. Let everyone know how cool you are.
Hey, thank you, Chris. Hey, everyone. My name is Abhishek. I'm a senior cloud support engineer with AWS based out of Northern Virginia. I help customers in building and troubleshooting their GenAI-based workloads, and super happy to be part of this show.
I'm super happy you're here. And like I said to everyone already, super cool what you do, and so excited to talk to you about what you do. It's really bleeding edge technology. I'm hearing about it all of the time. I'm sure everybody else is, but really want to make sure that people are able to get their hands on some of these resources and start digging around with this today. So while we're going along here, please put anything into the chat in terms of your thoughts, your feedback, your questions. Love to see those, love to bring them up and talk about them on the show, as well as I'll be putting some things into the chat in terms of links to any resources in terms of documentation. I got some training stuff for Skill Builder. So if you got an AWS account, you're going to be getting some free stuff that you can check out today that's going to get you started in Bedrock if you haven't yet. So that's really exciting. And also, just another note, on top of saying congratulations to Jay, which thank you, Erie Edits, for throwing that in there. I'm going to put it on the screen here so I can get a screen cap for Jay later. Please tell us where you're joining from. I'm joining from Boston. I forgot to say that. So please let us know where you're joining from today, and let us know what the temperature is, because if it's anything like Boston, you might hear my fan running in the background. I'm sorry for that. That's just kind of what I got to do to not drip into the electronics that are around me. But so, like I said, we're AWS Repost Live. We, of course, want to talk about Repost all the time. So I'm going to show it off real quick. This is our account. Please go over there and follow it. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff on here, talking about a lot of documentation and getting into the nitty gritty about Amazon Bedrock. So first, I'm going to level set. Like I said, there might be people joining us here today, Abhishek, who are not really familiar with Amazon Bedrock. So that's where you come in. If you can give us sort of a background on Bedrock, and then as the title of our show today suggests, building AI agents. What does this mean?
Sure, yeah. So Bedrock is generative AI service from AWS. It makes easy to build Gen AI based applications with Bedrock. Bedrock provides all of the functionalities within Gen AI space that we have currently. You can create your knowledge bases and build RAG based application. You can create AI agents with Bedrock. You can customize your foundation model. You can fine tune your foundation model. You can do prompt caching. You can do a lot of stuff which is available in GenAI space with the help of Bedrock.
Cool. Yeah. And a lot of really cool stuff that people are still discovering on a daily basis, which is really, I run into people all the time within AWS talking about the cool stuff that they're building and showing it off. And we're going to have the New York Summit coming up next week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of really neat stuff announced. So tune in for more information on that later on in this show even. And just real quick, want to give some shout outs. I see a few folks. I got somebody from Brazil joining, so that's always cool. Los Angeles, which is 88 degrees and sunny. Jealous. I wish it was 88 degrees here. And then Sterling, Virginia. That's great. And 96 here. That sounds more of what I'm dealing with up here in Boston. So I get you. I feel you. Simpatico in terms of how miserable it is. But what's not miserable? Bedrock and what we can do with it. So why don't we get into a bit of what this looks like in a practical sense, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it, maybe some like architecture.
Yeah, sure. So let's move on to this, right? Do you see my screen?
Yeah, I got it up.
All right. So, but so before we get into Bedrock agents, let's take a quick look at the AI agent, right? So AI agent are the system that understand human text input
Mhm.
and orchestrates workflows without human interaction, right? So it is so powerful. You can give your questions, whatever you are thinking, in natural language query to agents, and AI agents are able to tackle that complex questions provided by the user, and then that's how they do the planning, and then divide that question into multiple steps and then give the responses back to user, right? So that is overall how AI agents work. So it has like if we talk about AI agents in generative AI, it has several components like planning.
Mm.
So it is instructed to think step by step using chain of thought. So that's how it divides your complex task into multiple smaller tasks. And it has something called tools, right? So as a user, when you are building your AI agents, you can create various tools, and within that tool you can call your external APIs, you can connect with your external systems, you can connect with your databases, and agents are really powerful, so they can invoke those actions and get the responses back, right? And the third part is memory. So
Mm.
it has ability to retain the information and conversation history that is happening with the user, right? So that is AI agent. Now let's take a look at Bedrock agents, right? How the architecture goes. So if you take a look at the first, right, as a user, if I am interacting with the Bedrock agent, I'm going to ask my question to the Bedrock agent. So Bedrock agent already has this kind of information in number two step, right? It
Mhm.
has access to the prompt that is supplied by the user. It has access to the conversation history that is happening with the user. It has all the actions, right? So as a builder, when you create the Bedrock agents, you need to define what are the actions that my agent is supposed to take, right? And you define those actions in with Bedrock agent. And then we call something as KB, right? Knowledge base. So if you want to connect your agents with your own company data sources or with your own data and want to provide context aware responses to the user, then go ahead and integrate Bedrock agent with knowledge bases. And so Bedrock agent has access to your knowledge base.
Mm.
Important thing is instructions, right? So as a user, you need to define that what your agent is responsible for, right? So for example, if I want to build HR system for a company in which employees can go ahead and use this agent and ask like what are the available vacation for into my account, right? I want to apply time of request with the help of this agent,
Yeah, an
right?
HR
So
tool.
yep, yep. The
Cool. Yeah.
HR tool. So those kind of instructions we can define, right? So it has access to those kind of instructions. And then as we talked about, it has memory as well. So it has memory that what kind of information is being reciprocated with the user.
Mm.
So with that, it has all those access with all these details, right? And then if we go on to number four, right? So I will discuss number three a bit later, right? Let's discuss number four.
Okay.
So, why agent is so powerful, right? So, ultimately, we are going to use foundation model behind the scene in Bedrock agents, right? So, foundation model provide all the reasoning power to the agent, right? So, we are going to give all those information which is there in the number two to foundation model, right? And that's how foundation model use chain of thought technique, right? So it thinks step by step, and it actually divides your task into multiple steps in number six, right? Yeah. So
Sure.
in
Which is
number
why
three,
these real world applications that have like repeatable tasks that you've done over and over, which is stuff that we all understand, is why these tools are so powerful and why they can save us so much time. I mean, like what you're describing as an HR tool, we know that there's like an HR department that's able to do X, Y, Z, but it can take you a long time to say, I need X amount of PTO off. What do I have left? You got to manually go check that dashboard. You got to check this dashboard. You got to check that. Whereas through a single tool and through a natural language prompt, you can kick that out in a matter of seconds by just feeding the same amount of data into your Bedrock model. And then now the time that you save doing that, you can go on to bigger, more important tasks.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
it reduces the manual work that is done by humans, right? So it is going to automate everything that we are doing with the help of agents, right?
Mm.
So we talked about step number 6. So for each of the steps, what it does, it calls your API. So it has ability to identify what API call I need to do for this step, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, the HR system that we are going to talk about, right? So within HR system, if as a user I want to apply time of request, so agent knows that which API call I need to call in order to apply the time of request for this employee,
Mm.
right? And if I want to know what is the available balance for the time offs within my account, it knows which API call I need to do, right? So it has access to those API calls, and it can call those APIs and get the results back, right? So number 7, we are getting the results back for each of the API call that it is calling,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it has access to the knowledge bases. So it can call the knowledge bases as well and get the responses back from the knowledge base, right? If you have your own data that you want to integrate with the knowledge Bedrock agents, you can integrate this with Bedrock agent, right? So what it does for each of the step, it either calls your APIs, or it either calls knowledge bases, right?
Mm.
And then get the results back. So now the main part is, if they are getting like individual responses, so it has ability to combine all those results into one big final response here at step number 9, right?
Right.
And then ultimately it is provided to the user. So that's overall architecture of Bedrock agents. But one important piece here is Bedrock guardrails.
Yes. I was about
Yeah.
to ask. We skipped it first and then we skipped it there at
Hmm.
the end. So I'm like, okay, there seems to be some mystery around the guardrails. So,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Like to get into that.
Yeah. So guardrails is an important concept, right? Whenever we are building the generative AI application, we always follow the responsible AI, right? And
Mm.
when you are working AWS Bedrock, we always make sure that we are following responsible AI policies and practices.
Of
And
course.
that's where Bedrock guardrails come into picture. So Bedrock guardrails is a feature which is used to filter the toxic inputs and outputs, right?
Mm.
So for example, when the user is providing inputs to the Bedrock agent, guardrails is applied to your inputs. So it makes sure that we are providing the right inputs to the agents, and it filters all those toxic inputs, right? And similarly, guardrails is applied to the final response as well before giving it to the user. So
Mm.
guardrails make sure that we are providing the clean output to the user.
Sure. So the guardrails is filtering the input that is coming from the natural language that the user is putting in and then double checking it on the back end to make sure that it's not adding anything toxic in its output. If I'm
That's correct.
understanding that. Okay.
Hmm.
Great. This is really helpful in terms of like an overview, just especially for someone like me. I'm still wrapping my brain around this, as I'm sure a lot of people in this space are wrapping their brain around this. I think as well, if you're not very familiar with Amazon Bedrock and you would like to get familiar with it, I grabbed a link to a skill builder course. I just put the link in the chat here on Twitch. I'll see about you folks on YouTube if I can get this to you as well. But this is just an introductory course. It's rated for 45 minutes, but I think it's going to depend from user to user. But it's getting started. It's going to get your hands onto some of these tools. show you around the console what to click around and how to understand some of these concepts and understand the signal flow for yourself, so you can know how to integrate it into your workflow. But we can move on to the next one. I believe that you actually wanted to jump into the console yourself and show a bit of this
Yeah,
off. I'd love
sure.
that.
Yep. So I want to show how to build the agents, right? So let's take a look. So by the way, I am showing my Jupyter notebook, which is in SageMaker Studio, right?
Okay.
This is kind of an IDE for anyone like a data scientist, ML engineer, software developers who want to build ML AI based application. They can use Jupyter Notebook on SageMaker Studio.
Perfect.
Right. So let's take a look at how to create the Bedrock agents, right? So uh, uh, take a look at this create agent, right? So this is the API that we use to create the agents. So in this API, we are passing very important parameters, right? So we are passing instruction, right? So that's the instruction that we talked about when we were talking about the architecture, right? So if we take a look at the agent instruction,
Mm.
so I am building the same HR agent that we already talked about, right? So
Oh,
we are
sure.
providing the instruction as you are an HR agent helping employees understand HR policies and manage vacation time, right? So this instruction gives a context about your agent, right? So this application is actually an HR agent and it is going to help employees. So always give the clear and concise instructions to your Bedrock agent in order to get good responses.
For sure. And in terms of like identities, because you're telling it that you essentially work for HR. So I've seen that in a lot of natural language prompts as well, that it's sort of like telling the AI to take on a persona and or like some sort of like professional persona that's associated with it, which I think is pretty cool. And I was also going to call out, I love it when code itself has pretty much natural language in it. I love that if you want to create an agent, cool, it's create agent. It makes it pretty easy to remember when you come around to start putting these functions in there.
Right. Yeah, persona is a great thing, right? So you can always tell and give the instructions to the foundation model that you are acting as an HR agent, right?
Hmm.
And that's how it is going to act as, right? So that is really powerful concept. So we provide the instructions while creating the agent, and then we are going to provide what kind of foundation model we want to use. So as you know, right, Bedrock provides range of foundation model to
Hmm.
choose from. You can choose from various vendors such as Anthropic, Llama models, from Amazon Nova models, right? You can use any of those models, and that's how your agent is powered by. So right now I'm choosing Nova Premier model, and you can use any of those models. You can use Anthropic models as well in this foundation model parameter while creating the agent. And
And
apart,
if you'd like to see, sorry
Mhm.
to cut you off, I just wanted to let everyone know in the chat, if you want to see a full list of the supported models on Bedrock, I just put some documentation in there. So if you want to take a look, see if your favorite model is listed, that might spur some inspiration in you. But go ahead.
Yeah, sounds good. Right. So here we are providing the agent resource role on as well, right? So this is common for any of the APIs that you call within AWS, right? You provide your role, and your agent role should have the required permissions to call those Lambda functions on your behalf, right? And to call your knowledge bases. So it should have ultimately all those required permissions. So this is how you create an agent, right? If I go down, the next step is on creating the agent action group,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you create an action group, what you essentially do, you define that these are the tools that I'm going to define for my agent, right? So here for this HR agent, we are going to define two kind of tools. The first is get available vacation days, and the second is reserve vacation time. So my agent provides two kind of functionality. The first is it provides the available vacation days for any employee, and the second is it can reserve your time of request as well, right? And this is like there are two ways on which you can define your tools within Bedrock agent. The first is function schema, and the second is API schema, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So within the function schema, you define something like this, that this is the name of the function, right? And description of the function and the parameters, right? What are the parameters that are required for this function to be executed? So when you provide your user prompts to the agent, it
Hmm.
can extract those parameters and pass it to those functions.
Wow. Cool. Before we move on, I just want to really quick refer to a couple of things that we're getting in the chat here. We got a question from Fresnel over on YouTube asking if we can share the chat on YouTube. Yes, I'm putting the links in here. That sorry about that. That's personal bias. I've been running a lot of stuff on Twitch, so it was just a one-to-one there. You should see them coming through under the AWS account now. Please let me know if they're not showing up there. That could be a problem that I'll need to look into while we're live here. Then I got a question from Vandred about credits over on Twitch. I got none to give you. I wish I did. I'm sorry. I would love to hand you some, but unfortunately, I've got none for myself. But pay attention and join some of the streams that we do on AWS Training Live. We'd like to have vouchers and credits and things that we can provide at any given time. We're always trying to give them out, and we have shows all year long. So while you're learning, there could be an opportunity that comes up on another show. Who knows? I got a question from only I think it's Nasus. Are we using CDK for the code?
No, so we are not using CDK, we are using Boto3, right? So
Mm,
we are just using Python SDK to interact with agents.
gotcha. Okay, easy enough. Um, love the questions. Please keep them coming. I want to address them as much as possible. And like I said, Fresnel, if you're still not seeing the links show up on YouTube, please let me know. I'd like to see if I can solve that while we're doing this live. Back to you, Abhishek.
Yep. So that's how we define the functions, right, for our agent. And this is how we define the actions using function schema. There
Mm,
is another way by which we can define our functions, that is called API schema, right? So if I go to this public documentation link, right, so it provides that how do we define open API schema for the action group, right? So these
okay.
are the two ways by which you can define the schema for your functions, in which you define like what is the description for my function and what are the parameters that it requires to be executed.
And I'm glad that you made a mention there. Also, I just shared the link to the Define Open API schema in the chat, so you can check out what Abhishek was just showing off there if you wanted to learn more about that Open AI schema. But I'm really glad that you mentioned, made a quick mention there in terms of the function schema, because that's going to bring us to one of our questions that we got from our repost community. If you're not on repost yourself, you should be highly recommended. As you can see up there in the corner, we're AWS Repost Live. So we like to talk about repost and champion repost all the time. It's a great resource to share your knowledge and show off your knowledge as well. But I did get a question here from user, I think it's Guzelgun. They have a problem or are having a problem retrieving the function schema from their agent action group. And they go through quite a bit here, which is pretty excellent. This user, they weren't playing around. They came with as much context as possible. They really want to get an answer to their question. And it seems that we got a question that was answered by the repost agent, which, hey, funny enough, we're talking about agents. We got an agent built into repost that's able to come back with an answer here for them. And when reviewing this offline, it looks like they've covered most of it, but I'm wondering if you've got some additional context that you could add.
Yeah. So here, the problem that they are describing is they are getting different outputs in the draft version of the agent versus deployed version of the agent, right? So for
Okay,
anyone they who are attending, right, a quick understanding what is draft version and what is deployed version, right?
please.
Uh,
Yeah.
So when you create an agent, it is always in a draft version. And so when you want to deploy the agent, right? So what you do, you create an alias for an agent, and then you create a version. So you associate that version with the alias, and that's how you deployed your agent. So coming back to the question, right? So they are getting uh, get agent action group API, right? So
Hmm.
this API is ultimately used to get all the actions that are associated with an agent, right? And when you get all the actions group for an agent, you get all the function schema. Like these are my functions, these are my parameters, and you are going to get all these information. But it seems like they are not able to get that function schema within the deployed version. They are getting it with the draft version, but not with
Mm.
the deployed version. So from what I have tested so far, I have got the same responses with the draft version and with the deployed version. And ideally, it should give, the similar outputs for the draft as well as the deployed version. So
Mm.
I would just, ask you to retest it. And if you are still getting, the different responses, feel free to reach out to us via AWS support. We will be happy to take a look at the issue.
Oh, of course. I mean, as the name implies, with AWS support, we're here to support you with AWS. So then, if you're still running into that problem, it looks like we even got another a follow up question from another user who appears to be running into the same issue. So I'll clip this video and I will paste it here onto the article that's on repost, so that you can circle back, watch this. Hopefully, it gives you some more context and some more information that's going to help you out. Just a couple of quick things that we also got from the chat while we were going through there. We got something from Wandandera Collins. Wants to know what the most basic thing is when building an AI agent. Just real quick, I did follow up in the chat and I put a link to that skill builder course again that's about getting started with Amazon Bedrock. So if you haven't gotten started with it, that's probably a good place to go. But wondering if you could weigh in here, Abhishek.
Sure, yeah. That's a great question. Basically, mm, I think in order to start the AI agent, we need to know the basics of generative AI, right? So, generative AI is ultimately powered by foundation models. So,
Mm-hmm.
foundation model, just try to understand, how foundation models are able to, get those outputs because they are already pre-trained on massive amount of data, right? And then when you know the basics of generative AI, it is easy to build AI agents, right? So go ahead and use Bedrock agent if you have AWS account, right? So with Bedrock agent, you need to know what kind of application you want to build with your agents, right? That is the basic thing that you should know, right? That's how you are going to define your instruction for the agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instructions are very important within the agentic space. If you give the clear, concise, right kind of instructions, foundation model is going to behave uh, rightly and give the better responses, right? So give the appropriate instructions, right? Define appropriate instruction. And then another thing is define the tools, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you are going ahead with the agentic AI, right, you must be calling any external API, you must be interacting with your databases. So define all those tools in a list, right? So for example, this HR system, right? When as a builder, I want to build this, I have to list down all the tools that my agent is capable of doing, right? So I want to reserve vacation days, write it down. I want to get information about the time of policy, write it down, right? So like list down all the tools, and then when you list down, kind of instruction for your agent, kind of list down all the tools. And the third thing is just identify which kind of framework you want to use to build AI agents, right?
Mm,
Within GenAI space, you have like numerous frameworks, right, to create the AI agent. So go ahead and use Bedrock, right? It gives you managed infrastructure. You do not need to manage anything behind the scene. You just need to define your building pieces, right, that we already talked about: instructions, tools, actions, right? Define those, and you are ready to go while building your AI agents.
100%. I mean, like you said, Bedrock is going to give you a huge head start. So if you haven't gotten started with agents, I would really highly suggest checking out that skill builder course. It's going to get you started. It's going to get you a really far ways into working within this world, and I can't recommend it enough. And like you said, it's only as good as the data that you're able to provide it. So like,
Yeah.
even if we weren't talking about agents, if you had somebody who worked in HR and you're like, hey, I need to take some vacation time, but they don't have access to any data in terms of your available PTO, a calendar, or anything, they're also not going to be able to function properly. So,
Right.
uh, cross your T's, dot your lowercase J's, and you'll be just fine. Real quick here, shout out to Neelam. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Appreciate it. Please come back. We have shows all the time. We have a show every Tuesday, but not next Tuesday. More news on that later on in the show. And Fresnel did say that they got the link. Awesome. Really glad to hear that. There's more coming. So keep an eye on that chat. Wants to know what stack you're using to build the agent.
Right. So the stack that you're using is we are using, right? We are using Boto 3 ultimately, right? So when you are
Mm-hmm.
building AI agents, I'm using Bedrock. So Bedrock comes with all the required APIs in order to build the agent, right? As we already explained, right? So create agent is the basic API. That's how you create the agent within Boto 3, right? And then create the action group API is by which you define your function schema, and you define like what are the actions that you want to perform with the help of the agent.
For
Yeah,
sure.
so just the short answer is ultimately I'm using like Bedrock APIs to call those APIs within AWS SDK. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, there's like so much of the infrastructure that already comes ready out of the box when you're working with Bedrock. So
Hmm.
it's great that we don't have to start from the zero and build up. I just got a peek at the clock and saw that we're already 32 minutes into the show, so we got to get moving to get to the rest of our content. But please do keep the questions coming. If we need to sidebar and continue talking to y'all, I love talking to y'all. So please keep submitting your questions. We'll go on to our next one because I think that this is going to be a pretty easy segue for me, because we're talking about how important data in your agent is so that it can reference the right things and get you the right answers. And so we have a question here from Repost specifically. It's about agent accuracy. So, hey, like we're already on this topic. We can answer this question for Miriam. And it looks like they're getting some responses from their agent in terms of the users repeated the greeting, it falls under general communication, and so they're not quite getting the right responses that they want here. So I'm curious if you've had a second to take a look at this, and what advice you would offer Miriam.
Sure. Yeah. So I think before we get into this question, we can take a look at the demo as well, right? And
Yeah,
that's where we are going to discuss some of the things which are related to this question as well.
for sure. Yeah, you ready to pull that up?
Yep.
You're off and running.
All right. Yeah. So the agent that we talked about, right? So I created this agent using Jupyter Notebook. And when you go ahead and use Bedrock console, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
AWS console and you are within Bedrock. On the left-hand panel, you see all these functionalities that we give as part of Bedrock generative AI service, right? You can click on this agent. So this is the agent HR assistant function definition, right? This is the agent that we created.
Mm.
And now we are going to take a look at, tests. So your Bedrock console provides the functionality to test the agent, right? So when you want to build any AI agent, you really quickly want to test your agents whether they are able to do those actions or not, right? So
For
I
sure.
have some of the natural language query, right, that I can provide. So for example, uh, let's say if we want to just pass on that how many vacation days employee ID 3 have. So, uh, so this is just a natural language query, right? And we want to pass on that, I have employee ID 3 and I want to know how many vacation days that I have, right? So
Mm,
in order to test, I'm passing this prompt to the agent, right? And agent is just thinking about it and it is providing the response, right, in the same natural language query. So employee ID 3 has 21 available vacation days, right? So what is essentially doing behind the scene, it is invoking the appropriate action, and then it
mm,
is it is like sending the call to the database, right? So the HR agent that we talked about, what we are doing here, right? So we are interacting with the databases, and that database is SQLite, right? And
okay.
we are behind the scenes, we are running the queries, right, for those functions that we have defined. So ultimately the function that the query that I pass on, right, it is going to invoke get available vacation days function, and then it is going to run bunch of queries.
Mm,
Right. So let's go back here. And this is the very important thing. If you take a look at the show trace, right, and click on this trace, it gives you all the step-by-step thinking that it is doing, right? So let me
mm,
go and take a look at this raw response, right? So the user goal is to find out how many vacation days employee ID 3 has. The best action plan is to use vacation action group get available vacation days to get the number of available vacation days for employee ID.
mm,
Action plan is not complete. The next step is call this action, right? And then available action is this action requires the employee ID parameter, which is already provided. So if you take a look at this raw response, it provides you step by step thinking that your foundation model is thinking, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
whenever you build your AI agents and you are not getting the desired outputs, always take a look at this trace steps, right? Just to know how foundation model is thinking, whether it is calling the correct set of tools or it is calling the incorrect set of tools, right? So it is very
Hmm.
important to take a look at this trace.
Yeah. So this answers sort of the accuracy question from the repost user Miriam, in that if you are putting prompts into your agent and you're getting responses that are unexpected or pointing to the wrong type of data and you're not exactly sure what's going on, jumping in here and taking a look at
Mhm.
the trace step, you can see where maybe in the logic it went askew, and so then you know that if it's an issue with what your prompt was or what data it's referencing, you know where exactly to go back and correct it so that in the future either that natural language prompt or a similar one is going to get you the results that you were looking for.
Right.
That's great.
Yep. And
um
another part
oh yeah,
to
go ahead.
answer this question, yeah,
Hmm.
to so another thing that we can quickly take a look, right, for this agent, click here, right? So let me go back again to this agent and click on this edit
Mm,
and click on this one. Right. So you see here this pre-processing orchestration. There's another one which is called knowledge-based generation, and the
hmm.
fourth is post-processing. So these are the sequence of steps in which we Bedrock has already provided some prompt templates, right? So if you take a look at this pre-processing and go down, take a look at this prompt template, right? So this prompt template has been provided by Bedrock whenever you create any AI agent, right?
Mm.
So these are like predefined prompt templates whenever you create any Bedrock agent. This is the prompt template for orchestration, right?
Okay.
And the last one is post processing, right? So this is the prompt template for the post processing. So now coming back to the user question in which they are complaining about the accuracy, right, that they are getting from Bedrock agent. So
Hmm.
they are getting kind of a thinking part within the response, and this is really undesired thing, right? We don't really want any thinking part within our responses, right? So in order to get the appropriate accuracy, I would suggest using um, changing the prompt template for the post processing step, right? So what you essentially do, and I see that I think they have already tried it, right? They mentioned it in the question that they are using the post processing template,
Hmm.
but I think post processing template is the best way to go forward. So what you can do, you can create the lambda function for your post processing. So what it does, when it reaches into post processing stage, it invokes your lambda function. And
Okay.
in your lambda function, you define your implementation, that you identify the patterns related to the thinking part, right? And then in that raw response, you remove those patterns and then
Hmm.
give that clean response back to the user. So essentially, your lambda function is working as a quality control filter, right?
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's how you would be able to give accuracy back to the user.
That's a super helpful and powerful tool, honestly. Thank you for showing that off. We do got a couple of questions here from the chat. If we can jump on those, we got another one from Fresnel asking if you can clarify the input prompt is parsed and mapped to the parameters.
Right. That's a great question, right? And it reminds me of the architecture, right? That we already
Right.
talked about, right? So ultimately, your Bedrock agent has access to the prompt, natural language query, right? And it has access to the actions that you have defined as a builder, right? So now a foundation model already has that reasoning power, right? So it can understand the natural language that you are providing as a user, and then the foundation model can extract the parameters that are required for your function to be executed, right? So we took a look at the trace steps, right? That's how foundation model is ultimately, getting all those parameters from your natural language and invoking those functions, right? So to answer your question, it is using the foundation model reasoning power in order to kind of, understand the natural language human query, and then mapping it to the functions, and then extracting the correct parameters and passing it to the functions.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm going to share a link that I found here that dives a little bit into the architecture from our community.aws page. Hopefully, Fresnel and others, this is helpful to you. But I will also keep looking and see if I can find some better information on that as well for you to share. And then we had one more question from user Velour. Any chance we will get the notebook files? Um,
Yeah, I think this I have created within my own account. The idea was to just to give you an explanation on how to create Bedrock agents, but we have
mhm.
various code examples within GitHub, right? If you go into GitHub AWS samples, and within Bedrock, right, you have like so
Yeah.
many code examples to create those Bedrock agents. So go ahead and use that. And I think, yeah, we can share those links as well.
Yeah, GitHub is a great resource, and I think another resource I shared a link earlier to a skill builder that was getting started with Amazon Bedrock. I just shared another one in there that's exploring Bedrock agents specifically, and it comes complete with labs. So if you've got a builder ID, you can go on over to Skill Builder, log in, and check that out, and it has labs in there. So you'll be able to actually start clicking on some things, getting some example code, and really start playing around with it. So if you're completely new, go to the getting started, which is going to be higher up in our chat. And if not, check the chat right now. I just put that link in there. If you're a little bit familiar with what we're talking about today, you want a little bit more meaty content to really dig your teeth into, that's a great place to get started. I will have another big skill builder thing to share later on. But let's really quickly, I know we've only got about 11 minutes left. Please, if you got more questions, please keep them coming. Love talking to you all. So please keep reaching out. It's awesome. But we will move on to our next topic, which is going to be, I believe you wanted to talk about multi-agent.
Yeah, I mean, we can, quickly talk about, since we are talking about AI agents, multi-agent is also a powerful capability, right? So as a user, if you need more than an agent, right? You want to build more than a single AI agent, you have to create like multiple AI agents, right? And
Mm,
then ultimately you want to collaborate between those agents. So you create your specialized agent, and you want to kind of, your application needs to access to all those agents, right? So there is a need to collaborate between those agents. And then when we have like multiple agents, session management, right, and memory management and orchestration, these are like biggest challenges that comes into picture. Right. So basically, Bedrock agents comes with out of the box feature, which is called multi-agent collaboration. Right. So
mm.
what you can do, you can create your supervisor agent, and you can, define your collaborator agent. So it is responsibility of Bedrock agent to get the responses back from each of the agent and combine them and then give it to the user, right? So this is also a powerful feature. And within Bedrock console, right, you can find that feature, multi-agent collaboration. You can just, uh, it's like a checkbox. You can make it true, and multi-agent collaboration feature will be available. So you have to ultimately define, what is your supervisor agent and what is your collaborator agents.
For sure, and I just shared a link to some documentation to specifically around the multi-agent collaboration feature and how to enable it, and what it means, and how you can start using it today. So that's in the chat for you as well to please go take a look at. And of course, if anybody is already, I can't believe we're 47 minutes into this live stream, and this is the first time I brought it up. That's on me. I'm sorry, everybody. If you're already using Amazon Bedrock, or if you've used it, you dabble in AI agents in any way, would love to hear from you and what your use case is. So please put that in the chat as well. Would love to know what people are creating, because this space is like so interesting to me, hearing what all the creative things people are doing with AI agents. I mean, it's all bleeding edge stuff. So no matter what it is you're doing with it, if you're putting your shopping lists together using an AI agent, I want to know about it. That's interesting. So please feel free to reach out. Um, Let me just really quickly drop that from the screen. And I got a couple of things. We'll see exactly what we touch on in terms of like time that we have left and whatnot. But I had a question here that's about strands. Do you want to talk about strands, Abhishek?
Yeah. Right. So strengths agent is another way by which you can create the AI agents, right? So we had one question wherein it was asked that, how to create the AI agents, right? So Bedrock agent is one of the way you can create the AI agents, but then we have strengths agent as well. So it is open source framework to create the AI agents, and it is very easy to use and very flexible, in which you can, give the instructions and you can create your tools for your AI agents. So that's how you create the strengths agent, right? And I think the user has some questions with strengths agent, right?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen here. I've got this question on repost from Sonal, and it looks like specifically they got an error about a throttling exception when they were trying to use. So it looks like not so much surrounding, conceptually what strands are. I think that that's useful context, right, for folks who are joining us, and then admittedly for me, I'm a bit of a layman in this piece of my knowledge, but it's good to know a bit of background about what strands are, where they came from, what use cases they were born from. Like, why did we even bother to, like, why strands? Why now? It's good to know why we would include those, but then that's going to give us helpful context to maybe take a look at what Sonal seems to be wrestling with here and see if we can maybe help them out.
Right, yeah. So I think they are getting the throttling exception. So this exception typically occurs, right, if you are using your account like more than your account limits. So ultimately with Bedrock, your limits are in the form of tokens per minute, right? So you
Mm,
must be using, consuming the tokens more than the quota which is defined for your account. But a quick way to resolve this issue is using retry and exponential backoff, right? So ultimately what you do, if you're using boto 3, right, which ultimately if you're using strengths you must be using, right, boto 3. So
mm,
within the config parameter you define that max attempts, right? So max attempts is the parameter by which you can increase the retries. So what it
mm.
essentially does, it waits for a longer time in order for your request to be succeeded, right? So ultimately you have to kind of space out as you're highlighting, right? So that's how
Yeah.
you are going to get your request succeeded.
And this answer that I am highlighting here was provided by the repost agent. And then Alexi, actual friend of the show, former guest on the show, was the one to review it and sign off on it. But it's great that this information's out there. It looks like this is mostly helpful. I also noticed that there's a mention of using CloudWatch metrics
Yeah.
just to help you out a bit, give you a bit of an overview of what your usage is. And so then you can plan accordingly. So it's really helpful that this is there. Again, I will post a link to this video into this question here as it appears on repost for Sonal. Hopefully you find it useful and it helps you out. We did get another question or a couple of questions here from the chat we can jump in on. One, I'm going to give a shout out to Wandendera Collins. They used it to use a chatbot. Great. That is a perfect example of what you would use this for, and especially something that you'd be able to start from using Bedrock as a really good leg up to get that going, and then just build on it and iterate it, and that can get as complicated as it needs to be, or as sophisticated, I should say, for your use case. So that's great. Keep on using it. We got another question from Fresnel. Thank you for weighing in so much today, Fresnel. It's great to hear from you. Can we create agents, for instance, on AWS and deploy it on another cloud provider and vice versa? I'm curious how flexible we are in this realm.
Yeah, so I think when we work in agentic space, I think uh, companies are using like multiple cloud providers, right? So one of the best feature of using Bedrock is you have access to various foundation model from multiple vendors, right?
Mm, mhm.
So you have from state of the art models from Anthropic, you have all the models from Meta, Llama models, right? You have Mistral models, you have Amazon Nova models as well, right? So I think you have
Yeah.
like multiple models within Bedrock space, so you do not need to kind of go to another cloud provider,
Mhm,
because ultimately AI agents are powered by your foundation model reasoning capabilities, right?
mhm.
And you already have those kind of reasoning capabilities from different vendors within Bedrock. So you would ultimately want to use Bedrock, to create your agentic AI space, right? But we all also take a look at strengths agent, right, which is the open source agent, right? So within strengths agent you can use all the models which are provided by Bedrock as well as open AI models as well. Yeah, so that is
Yeah.
like a difference between using strengths agent and Bedrock agents.
For sure. And I did share a link earlier in the chat that points to all those models. So if you're curious about what's available on Bedrock, a lot is available. So go check it out, experiment, have fun with it. That's kind of the point of it. We are actually coming up on the end of our talk here. So I want to make sure that I get a couple more things shared out here for any folks who are still tuning in, which, hey, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. But I'm going to share this link here to the building generative AI applications using Amazon Bedrock, which includes labs. This is another skill builder course, but this is the mother load. This is the mammoth course. This has basically everything from the getting started one that I shared earlier, plus the labs that I shared after that, plus even more. So if the first two links to skill builder I shared there aren't really going to cut it for you, you really want to dive a bit deeper, you're not going to be able to dive much deeper than checking out that last skill builder one that I just shared with you. That should cover top to tail, basically everything you should know to really get started today or tomorrow. Carpe diem. We are going to be not coming back next Tuesday as we typically do. I know that we're a weekly show. However, next Tuesday, the AWS New York Summit is going to be taking place. So myself and usual host of the show, Stephen Heverin, are going to be joining from our partner's desk at the AWS On Air desk that's on site there in New York City. If you're in New York, I believe registrations are still available. And I'm going to share a link here to an article that I've published on Repost that has some links to that registration page, as well as a few other resources. If you're not in New York City or in the New York area and able to join us, come back here. We will be streaming on Twitch and live from the Javits Center starting at 9 a.m. Eastern and going pretty much all day. So as there are launch announcements and all the crazy cool things that are happening on site there in New York, we'll be covering all of it. And as well as Repost Live will be there to answer your questions, take a look at what the community is talking about, and just can't wait to speak with all of you and have a great time in New York. With that, we're coming to the tail end here. So Abhishek, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us and answer all these questions and interact with the chat. And thank you, chat, as well, for being here and interacting with us and asking your questions. I had a great time. I hope that the rest of you had a great time. But until next time, happy building.